everybody. This is Ari here. I am hopefully streaming to Facebook, to YouTube, to the Facebook group, and to my Facebook page. If you can hear me, would you please kindly say check, 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 this microphone is on. Let me know if you're receiving on YouTube, on Facebook, in the various channels. I would much appreciate it. Just pop it into the channel, into the chat. I just wanted to pop on and tell you a little bit about our upcoming practice groups. We've been doing practice groups now for a little over a year, and they have been extremely popular. We have several different topics. We have one on this beautiful thing, the pattern system for the bass player, which is a whole series of levels that we do, and we have a couple of them ongoing. So we're so excited for the level 3 that's just graduating, because they are now really entering territory with this method where they can go, deeply into musical applications. So this, as you can see, this book ain't exactly thin, right? So it's over 330 pages, many of which you need to fill in because that's part of the practice. And then of course we give you the results, but we give them to you in a digital format online. So, it's a method, it's step by step. It's very carefully laid out. We include mental practicing. We include a lot of improvisation. It's all about learning the fretboard. And we have had many groups since we started this, and we keep going up in levels. And there's a level 4 starting now. And these guys are really at the edge of now getting into the really exciting territories. It takes a bit of discipline. It takes a bit of patience, but the rewards are just fantastic because you get to know the fretboard inside and out. I'm getting hellos from YouTube. Can I get some thumbs up from any kind of Facebook channel? My text says it's working, but I'd love to hear from somebody. Could somebody on Facebook just tell me, check, 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 like YouTube has thankfully done. And so again, a welcome. This is just an impromptu live stream. You can ask me anything about the method, about the pattern system, and you can also ask me anything about our upcoming jazz groups. So we have these groups that we're doing. They're 10 weeks live on Zoom. We meet together. Everybody is on camera, everybody interacts, but everybody's in a little tile. So it's not as intense as private lessons sometimes are. I know that, hey, thank you, Facebook, for checking in with thumbs up. So it's not as intense. You can actually, a lot of people tell me they really like it because they get to sit back a little bit, watch others absorb. Somebody else might ask just the question that you had in your mind, but didn't even know how to ask. So it's been a very successful format, and it's just super fun. We also have guest teachers. We have Rob Smith teaching for us. We have Josh Cohen teaching for us, and they all love it, as from the teacher standpoint too, because we get to interact with so many of you. And I've gotten really good over the year to just read the tiles. So I give an exercise, and everybody does it on their end. You're all muted, but I can watch, and I can give pointers and help. And so it's been very successful, and it's been working extremely well for the pattern system also. So we're very excited where this is going. So the title of today's live stream is The Patterns of Jazz. Question for you. Put in the chat for me what your experience is with jazz and what you would think of when you hear patterns of jazz. Because jazz is full of patterns. Music is full of patterns. But I need to, and while you're typing, so what's your experience level with jazz? You're curious, never done it, scary, old hat, gigging every week. I got my Thursday night at the library. Where are you at with that? So let us know in the chat. And, music is full of patterns. And when I talk about patterns, I want to be very careful, because there's some people out there who think, oh, patterns are a shortcut, right? Then I don't need to learn theory. I don't need to learn to read. It's all just like moving things up and down, right? That's not the kind of pattern that I'm talking about, because while those patterns get you a limited amount of understanding, that's not the way we use them. They're not a shortcut. They are a shortcut in a way, but they are not a replacement for learning to read. They're not a replacement for learning theory. Actually, if you open up my music theory for the bass player book, I teach the patterns, like the simple patterns, so like the Lego pieces, right? The little pieces out of which we build musical structures. I teach those from a very small unit onward. And so it's it's true that music is built from patterns, and we are doing very well, especially on the bass, because they're laid out so beautifully symmetrically, right? We do very well to study them, but they are also like, there are deep patterns under the surface that we can explore, and that's what we like to do in our courses. Tell me what your experience level is with jazz. I'm not getting many takers on that question, because the jazz is one of the groups that's starting next week. So Seth says jazz is very broad. Some is beautiful and improvisational, some is technically masterful, yet sounds appallingly awful. Yeah, I know what you mean, Seth. I know what you mean. There's some certain styles of jazz. I think you want to develop an ear for it. There's also a kind of jazz that's just very, very appealing intellectually, but maybe under that I'm not saying always does, but there is the danger of sometimes burying the storyline of the song, right? So, it's easy to forget that a lot of the standards that we tend to speed up and play at huge tempos, they come from songs, they come from musicals, they come from shows, and they have a story, and there's an emotional content in that song. And it's easy to forget that and just sort of reduce the song down to the chord changes and blow over the changes, because that's fun to do, and that's patterns that we often practice as jazzers. So, it's very broad. That's true. When I talk about, let me tell you what we do in our easygoing jazz tunes group. What we do is we talk about American songbook tunes mostly. They're all tunes you probably know. They're in our DNA one way or another if we grew up, in America or Europe and other places in the world. And you have access to this kind of, to these songs that just they're so good. They just keep getting handed down for that reason. So let me show you a little bit how our jazz group does. So I'm going to pull this up and just share this with you a little bit, just so that you see what we do. And, by the way, when we're talking, before I do that, patterns of jazz, can you name any kind of pattern of jazz? I am excited to have people from Spain on. That's fabulous. Where else is everybody calling in from? Put that in the chat. Any people from my old country here? Any Austrian contingent? So when we're talking about jazz, what pattern could you think of? Ratbone says, my old bass teacher transcribed all of Charlie Parker's parts to bass and would play them with his jazz band, but way beyond me. Yeah, well, Charlie Parker, I would assume Charlie Parks. So, it is 6251. Yes, that's correct. Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. So we have transcribing is a fabulous tool for jazz. Transcribing is one of the great ways to. I used to do this a lot with solos when I went to various university. So we did, we had to find commonalities in different soloist styles. So you can sort of find this person sounds a lot like themselves, because these are the kind of patterns they use. These are the kind of scales they like to put forward. They like to do change running. They like to do, moving sequences around. They like to paraphrase the melody. These are all strategies that you can use for jazz soloing. And we used to try to pinpoint, it's a very useful exercise, we try to pinpoint a person's style, because you start hearing somebody and you go, that's Charlie Parker, that's Charlie Parker, or that's Coltrane, or you hear, it's not just the sound and the phrasing, which are also very, very important bits and pieces, but they have some sort of vocabulary, right? So you can go into nooks and crannies for doing that, and that is very, very useful. So 6251 is a jazz pattern, as Seth astutely observes. That's correct, and those are chord changes. And what's so amazing about jazz is the amazing beauty that's being created out of it. Really, if you think about it, it's a quite limited set of notes and chord changes, because there are 12 keys, and all those 12 keys are 15 enharmonic keys, if you will, and all of them have within them a diatonic cycle and certain chord progressions that work certain ways, and then we have some modal interchanges, and that's just about the the pieces that we built our whole repertoire from. And there are a lot of patterns that repeat. And if you look at a jazz standard, about, I'm just guessing, but I would say that's right, and tell me if you disagree, but around 80% or so of bits of a jazz standard are typically made up out of common chord progressions that come out of a key, and that's part of the diatonic cycle. So the one that you just mentioned, Seth, 6251, is part out of the diatonic cycle, the entire diatonic cycle, and I love teaching it in major and in minor because it's so much on the root of so much of the music we listen to. It's 1 4 7 3 6 2 5 1, and you can keep going round and round and round and round. You're always repeating the same interval. You are descending a fifth or ascending a fourth, which leads you to the same note, and you're doing that in a diatonic fashion, though. So you have an augmented fourth in there, right? Or diminished fifth if you go down. When you are good at recognizing these patterns and these repetitive chord progressions, then you already have a leg up, because you look at a chart or you listen to something and you go, oh, there's that again, there's that again. Some tunes contain the entire diatonic cycle, like Fly Me to the Moon, but then there are other tunes, or that's an example in major, or for minor, for example, would be Autumn Leaves, right? So it starts on the 4 chord, doesn't always start on the 1 chord. So to get a little bit of practice in decoding them. But many have just snippets out of the diatonic cycle, like Seth 6251. So you have 1 4 7 3 6 2 5 1, and you only use 6 2 5 1, right? It's just a snippet, but you want to be able to recognize it. And to tell you, the dead giveaway on the bass, this is a pattern for you, dead giveaway on the bass, that it's a bit out of the diatonic cycle, is when just the roots do this. I can just go straight across the bass, 6 2 5 1 in the key of C, for example, right? There's the old country. Hi, Joe. Good to see you here. Lots of patterns, and if we recognize them, if we become quick in analyzing them, then we reduce our learning time, especially in jazz, we can reduce it down to a lot, because a lot of these tunes follow similar shapes and patterns. And you find these 6-2-5s, 1-6-2-5s, 3-6-2-5s, snippets out of the cycle. It doesn't always go back to the 1. So, it does take a little bit of practice to recognize them, so that they really help you. So you don't have to think really hard, but you get them. And that is a patterns in jazz that are very helpful. Now, the bass is so symmetric, right? And the way we teach in the pattern system, it may seem like a lot, it may seem like a thick book, but at the end of the day, what we're doing in the system is 5 shapes only. And inside of those shapes, and inside of those shapes are, first of all the diatonic cycles. So we practice them in every shape, and there's already your huge shortcut for being able to do this all up and down the fretboard. So that's a big shortcut. And then the other thing is that you can get better and better and better at identifying those chunks. You can go, oh, that's 4 bars of that, and then you already learned an eighth of the tune. Because usually they are 32 bars, and so you learn 4. It's like 1 6 2 5. Oh, okay, done. I know that. That's in the key of that. And then the bridge goes to the 4, which a bridge often does. Not always, but often. So there are a lot of patterns. There are a lot of shortcuts in music itself, and there are a lot of patterns and a lot of shortcuts on the bass if you practice it in a systematic fashion. Is diatonic the chromatic scale degrees? No. Seth, one good way of thinking of it is diatonic and chromatic are a little bit opposites of each other, right? You could think of it as opposites, because the chromatic cycle goes all the way around, touches on every single key, right? The diatonic cycle bounces around with just 7 notes. So what we do in our groups is I have you draw out the diatonic cycle. There's a graphic you can make, that you can create, and then you fold away all the notes that are not part of the diatonic cycle, right? So, for example, if I'm going through the diatonic cycle in the key of C, what are my 7 notes in the key of C? Everybody pop that in the chat. Pop it in the chat. What are my 7 notes in the key of C? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, folks. What is the what are the 7 notes of the key of C? And you could think of that as Chris wins the race. Hey, Chris. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Yep. Redbone's also following up as a quick second there on YouTube. Well done. So those are all the chips I get to play with, right? And this is the order of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Or 1, if you will. Okay, so now I'm not putting them in the order of the scale because not many songs go in the order of the scale. There are some. There's one, for example. Na, 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 na. Somebody to lean on, Billy Withers. So that's one, for example, where the chords, at least for a moment, go in the order of the scale, right? But this is rarer, right? More often than not, the chord progression follows the diatonic cycle because it's a very pleasing bass chord progression to go from the 5 to the 1. So diatonic has 2 half steps. That's not the right way to think about it, Redbones. It sometimes has 2 half steps. It sometimes has a half step, and depending on how I go, right? So there's a formula for the major scale. Pop it in the chat. What's the formula for the major scale? And there's a way that many people think about it. It's not my favorite, but I'll tell you what my favorite is. What's the formula for the major scale? Because here I got 2 half steps, right? Here I also have, I'm going to play the scale up on 1 string, then you can see it. Okay, got it? Half, two whole steps, so it's whole, half, whole, half, right? That's one way to do it. Awful fingering, of course, and very uneconomical to play it this way. I mean, there's good ways to do this. There's all sorts of ways how you can play a scale, but usually we wouldn't. I just wanted you to see the half steps and the whole steps. So it's a string of whole steps and half steps that follows certain rules. So whole, S probably means semi. We will call it half here, but I got you. Whole, half, whole, half. Exactly. Now, this is not my favorite way of doing this. Absolutely not. I'll tell you why. Because if you go whole, half, whole, half, and I want to know what the 6th note in this is, you have to count. It's very easy to miscount. And whole, it's like it doesn't give you any information about every single note. The way I like to think about a major scale is I want to know how every single note inside the scale relates to the root. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then root. And now, and this is why my books on theory starts with the intervals. They're the smallest building blocks in music. And you need to understand them. You need to know what they sound like. You need to know what they are used for. So if I go in a scale like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm talking interval. In a major scale, they are all major except for the 4th and the 5th because they are perfect. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then root. And by the way, I just want you to know this because there were some comments on YouTube last time. This is not a class. This is a live stream. This is completely spontaneous. I'm answering your questions. I have a little bit of a loose concept of what I'm doing. This is not teaching a class. I'm going down a rabbit hole right now a little bit because somebody had a good question and there's a learning opportunity there. But in my classes, I do everything step by step. So please don't expect like a course or a class in these live streams. You can sign up for our courses that are very prepared, very structured, very step by step. I'm going to show you one in a minute. But back to the scale, learning opportunity. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are all the 7 chips I get to play with. If you go through the cycle, you get B flat and E flat and A flat. I don't have that here, right? So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. That's it. That's all the notes I'm getting. And the way I like to think about it is not whole, half, whole, half, even though it's correct, but it's hard to miscount. I don't really see a lot of benefit thinking of it that way. What I like much better is to just know the intervals. Major second, major third, and I'm going back to the root. Why? Because they relate to this C. This is not an isolated whole step somewhere floating in the air. This has to do with C because this is C major. C is the root. So I go whole step. It's like 1, 2, right? So 2, major second, major third, back to the root, fourth, back to the root, fifth, back to the root, major 6, back to the root, major 7, back to the root. Because now when I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, excuse my voice. Oh, I need some coffee. See you later, Soraya. Thank you for joining. So now, for example, I can give you an ear training drill. For example, I'm going to hide my bass. If I go, so just again, so you hear it, and actually try if you can still remember the root. Is it still floating somewhere in the air? No. Right? So here is ear training for you. What 3 letter names are those? These are sounds, right? If I say whole, that's actually whole is 3 notes, right? That's another thing that trips you up. But C, D, E, yes. Or in terms of numbers, let's do numbers. Some people use solfege, so do, re, mi, that's fine too. But 1, 2, 3 was what I'm fishing for, right? Because they are 1, the prime, is an interval, prime, same note. Then 2, whole step, major second, and 3. So now I say numbers, but they make sense musically, right? If I say, what are these numbers? Da, da, da. Da, da, da. This is my root, right? And I'm singing. What are those numbers? Because this was 1, 2, 3, and I was singing da, da, da. Don't call it bad ears, Redbones. You just haven't been taught how to use them. You just haven't been taught how to use them. It's not 515. I'll play 515. Good idea, good guess. This is 515. 515. Right? That's not it. I played da, da, da. And again, to hear the entire scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Da, da, da. Many say 545. 545 sounds like this. Da, do, da. Somebody says 71171. That would sound like this. Da, da, da. Yeah, now we're getting closer. Zen got it first. Well done. Facebook user. If you put your name in as you sign on, I know who you are, but that's all good. And Redbones got it too. See, no bad ears. There's no such thing. E, E, D, E. So it was 3, 2, 3. That's correct. That's correct. And, you know, I have an ear training course that's very, very deep. We're going to add practice groups to that one soon because it's just stuff that needs to be practiced a lot. But I've literally met people who called themselves having absolutely no ear or like a disorder. And there is a very, very rare disorder where people really don't have the wiring to find pitches. But that's not you, because people like that usually don't feel attracted to music in the first place. So if you love music, then there's a very safe bet that you just haven't been taught how to do it. And I start very simple with some very, very simple, very clear exercises. And people immediately start getting their confidence up because now they know what to listen for. If you've never been taught what to listen for and you didn't have an opportunity to learn it intuitively in one way or another, then you just, you need a little bit of guidance and a couple of tips. So that's all there's to it. But these are great drills. Pick 3 notes, da da da, and then just try to tell yourself, it's like 1, 2, 3. There's so many ways how you can permutate those. You can go 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, right? Or 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Just 3 notes. You can do it with just 2 notes, right? And then I know singing, lyrics, playing, that's all another set of skills. Some people just don't have the voice box to be able to find a note. Here's what often happens. They will sing this note and think they're on C, right? And you're not entirely wrong, because what you're hearing there, I'm saying the 5th, okay? So what you're hearing there is an overtone, right? So you're not totally off, because the 5th is an early overtone and it is contained in this, right? That G is contained in that note. That makes it so we perceive it as the C on the bass. There are other notes that are resonating, and the fifth is an overtone that's contained in this. So if you're hearing da, you just need to recalibrate that this is the root 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know, so there are lots of drills that you can do with this, and I highly recommend you do them. So yes, 3, 2, 3 was the correct answer, and we are going down the diatonic rabbit hole. So let me just finish that thought, because the question was between diatonic and chromatic. So chromatic, 15 keys or 12 pitches, and harmonic, we're leaving that out of the equation right now, that I could call at B flat and A sharp, right? So just in terms of pitches, there are 12, and just in terms of pitches, you can arrange those 12 notes in such a way that I follow the same interval up and keep repeating that same sequence, which is a very good way to emphasize. So what I just did is I played the cycle, right? All of you have heard about the cycle of fifths, hopefully. Have you ever played it? That's a really good idea to do that, you know. So if you go to the left, which is what music often does, descending fifth. C to the F is a descending fifth. I can go up a fourth, sure, leads me to the F, but I can also go down a fifth, and it also leads me to the F, because they are inversions of each other. That's why you need to know this. And again, my theory book can hook you up with that knowledge. So very important for a bass player to know what inversions are. It gives you a lot of options to play bass lines in just a different octave, different ways. So C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, or F sharp, B, or C flat. There are different names for those. Sometimes C sharp or D flat, or B, C flat or B. So again, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, or F sharp, B, then E, A, D, G, back to C. That's when you play the chromatic cycle all the way around, right? And every one of those, and it sounds so good, because every one of those steps is like a mini 5-1. This to this is like a mini 5-1. It feels, when you listen to this, it feels like you're toppling down a hill and you can't stop. Do you hear that? I can't stop. There's no end point, right? That's the chromatic cycle. I'm going all the way around. I'm hitting all the pitches. Now, that's one thing. Now let's go to the diatonic cycle. The diatonic cycle is made up out of only 7 notes. The 7 notes we found with our formula. Some of you called it whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. I prefer going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and knowing my intervals. The second is major. The third is major. The fourth is perfect. The fifth is perfect. Don't ever say major fifth. Do not. Don't be that person. Don't say major fifth. Okay. So, and then major 6, major 7. So it's actually kind of intuitive. Fourths and fifths and octaves, you would never say major octave, right? So it's an augmented octave, if anything. But you can just think about they all major, the major scale, they all major, except for fourth and fifth, which are perfect, right? The minor scale, all minor. It's a little side note. Is the minor scale all minor? It's not. The second is major in the minor scale. But anyways, just talking mnemonics, right? So there is a minor scale, actually, where they are all minor, and that's called Phrygian. So if you think in terms of intervals, in terms of intervals, then you have a leg up immediately understanding scales. Way better than whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. You're going to miscount a million times, and you're also going to misname it. Because I'll tell you another trick. The way I do it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7 letters in the alphabet, in the musical alphabet. And if you follow the following rule, you're going to be right 99% of the time when naming a scale. Watch it. Well, actually 100%. You're going to be 100% right if you start on the right foot. That could be a little trouble. But watch this. If I'm going C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? All the letters are represented once. I have no doubles. I have no skips. If you ever create a scale and you're missing a letter, there's something wrong. Okay? F, G, A sharp. I got 2 A things. It's got to be B flat, right? C, D, E, F. Every letter has to be there once. That's a very, very good rule to follow. And I thought E is MC squared, Seth. What's up with that? He says E equals F flat in the chat. And yes, that is entirely correct. You can also say B equals C flat, or you could also say B equals A double sharp. You can wrap your mind around that. So note naming is extremely fun. It shouldn't be scary at all. at all. And that's one of the first things we do in any and all of my classes. You know, just march up a string and say all the note names. Use sharps going up, use flats going down. That's one of the easiest ways to sort of wrap your mind around how notes work, because there's a half step between E and F and B and C, but not between all the other letters. So, you know, with these few little rules, you can wrap your mind around how it all works. Okay, so earlier I played the chromatic cycle all the way around. Now I want to play the diatonic cycle. Again, diatonic means only the chips of C major. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's all. That's all. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Right? Those 7 notes. No flats, no sharps. C is easy because it's easy to see. It's on the piano. It's the white keys, color-coded, you know. So that's the chips I get to play with. But I said diatonic cycle. What's the cycle bit of it? Well, then I don't go in the order of the scale like Billy Withers does, but I go in the order of the scale. And the way I go in the order of the cycle, and the way I go in the order of the cycle is the same way as the cycle does. Up a fourth or down a fifth. Again, music goes to the left. There's some songs that go to the right too, like Hotel California goes to the right. Just for reference, right? But this feeling of it always, you know, you're like tension and release and tension and release and so forth. That's created by going through the left. If you go through the right, you have more of an uplifting feeling. So if that was over your head, don't even worry about it. It is something that we go into in depth in my theory classes. So I'm going to show you the diatonic cycle in the key of C major. 1 to the 4 to the 7. So I said the cycle is straight across, right? But here's what happens now. If I go, and again, I'm going up fourths or down fifths, right? I can go down a fifth and land on the F, or I can go up a fourth and land on the F. So cycle to the left. That's what it does. So if I go up a fourth, I land here. Now cycle, go up a fourth, right? Wrong. Where's my arrow button here? There we go, arrow buzz. So if I keep going to the B flat, that's not diatonic. I don't have B flat, but I have something B in the key of C, which is the regular B. So I got to go to that one. Well, that makes that an augmented fourth. Okay, an augmented fourth is still a fourth. I'm not breaking any of my rules, right? So 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Now I'm doing the diatonic cycle, right? And we, especially my pattern system people, know this. We practice those in every single pattern, in all areas of the bass, in all sorts of ways of putting them together and combining them. So it is a very, very useful shortcut. I had a longer question up there from N.K. Quain. I hope I'm saying your name wrong. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering this with a name like Ariana. You think I might be able to get other people's names right. Got a random question. Is there a particular fingering pattern for the bass? Say if I'm at the 5th string of E, is there a particular finger for that? So it depends on the context, right? And that's what the pattern system, in a way you could say it's all about that, but it's about so much more than that. Good fingering is already a huge shortcut, right? If I play my C major like this in pattern system world, this is called pattern 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's my major scale, but I can extend it. Don't just play a scale from the root to the root. You're cutting yourself awfully short, especially on the bass. In my pattern system, we keep extending it to the end of the shape. Now your ears might get a little cranky because, like, what are you playing? Are you Mixolydian? I can't tell. You're landing on the G. You know, it could be any of the modes. Well, all of the modes are in there. So we now really need to know what it relates to. And that's why in the pattern system, you need to know 2 things. My pattern folks know this very well. You need to know the shape. How's the shape work? How does the shape work? And where is the root? So here, this is pattern 5. There you go. Here's a pattern for you. We write them out. You actually get to write them out in all keys. And my critics say, oh no, she's lazy. She doesn't put it in the book. Yeah, right. One thing that I learned from teaching for many, many, many years now is that you learn much better if you figure it out yourself, now you can't figure things out from scratch. I give you guidance. I say, write out C major in this area, finding a pattern. We give you concrete guidance on how to do that. And then you come up with pattern 5 yourself for C major. And because you went through that thought process and maybe even made a mistake, awesome. And you make a mistake, then you can learn what you did wrong. You can correct yourself. You can rewind it. You can, that's why I went wrong. And you're going to remember it forever. So it's an incredible learning tool to write things out yourself. It's not because I'm lazy. I'm giving you all the answers where the book videos are. So if you need them written out, then we got them for you. We got you covered. But first, I want you to think it through and see if you can go down that rabbit hole yourself first, because it's very, very powerful. Let me think for 1 second what I want to talk about. So we went down a few rabbit holes, and yes, so depending, to answer your question, I'll answer it in one way. So in our system, that's not the only fingering, but that's what we start out with, right? You start out with a certain way, and you get your fingers to get really used to those 5 shapes. Then once we have them, we can go diagonally. We can do all sorts of ways to play that major scale. There's all sorts of ways. We can extend them to three notes per scale. That's a nice pattern that's often used. But before we do that, I want you to learn those 5 shapes. And for those 5 shapes, there's very specific fingering. As a matter of fact, the major root is either on the 2 or the 4 in the whole system. So whenever you're hunting for a root, put your second fifth. My experience of using it. It's like I'm up here and I need an E or whatever, and I just put my second finger there. That's my root, and then I know how everything relates to that. I can go to every single scale degree, right? And I know where everything is because I've done a lot of drills with saying scale degrees. I know how everything sounds like. Because if I say 1, that's a sound to me. If I say 2, it's a sound to me, right? So I hear and I know what they feel like. That's a 6, that's a 7. I don't need to look. I know this is E, this is C sharp, this is D sharp, this is E, right? I know where they are. And that is just so incredibly freeing because I don't have to think about every single note name and where is it, and the way we practice it, you will be able to say where the note names are because we systematically go through that. And I know that's extremely scary for some people in the beginning. Like I'll show you some drill that we do is like 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. So what I just did is I did one of our drills, which are called connection exercises, and I went from one key seamlessly into the next. And I set the scale degrees that I was doing. I'm in a certain area. I'm relaxed as peach because I practice this stuff and it's getting easier and easier the more you do it, obviously. But I could tell you where every single note name is of this thing. B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, E, D, C, B flat. And I'm in B flat, I have B flat because I'm in F. Now I'm in B flat, A, G, F, E flat, D, C, D, E flat. Yeah. So just giving you a couple of examples of things that we're practicing here. Again, this is a live stream. This is not a course. This is not a course. The course does all this step by step. Let me tell you about the class. I wanted to show you a little bit here. Wait a minute. How do I I have OBS running so I can fly in my desktop. I wanted to show you a little bit of the jazz class because it's just so cool what we did there. There we go. This is our portal. This was just class 1. Can you all see that? I believe you can. So this was week 1, right? So we start out really, really easy. And we talk a lot about swing feels. So there you see right out of the get-go. People are often so worried about notes, they're worried about finding the right notes because jazz is spontaneous improvisation, right? So that can sound a little bit scary for people. But it really isn't because we first of all break it down. We start very easy with some patterns that you can move around. So even if you don't have the pattern system under your belt, this is totally fine, and you can learn a lot. But we start with rhythm because the most important thing is to make this thing feel good, the swing feel. I have a bunch of tricks for feeling the swing feel, and we go into the masters. We listen to a lot of masters in this class, but even more so at home, because you get access to all of that. So there's Sir Duke, and we, talk a lot about how to make it swing. And then we start creating simple walking bass lines by using roots and fifths. The shape on the fretboard, going up and going down. I show you how that works. And then we always present the melodies, because I want you all to know what the melody is about, even though the bass player doesn't often get to play the melody. But it's good to know it. It's good to hear it inside your mind as you walk in these changes. And then we're going through some, versions of the C Jam Blues here with practice tracks. These are tracks that you can practice to. Then I tell you exactly what to practice. And so it starts out quite easy, I would say. But then let me go, for example, to week number 7, where in week 7, oops, no, not that one. Wait, hang on here. Oh, I see what I'm doing. I'm in the wrong group here. Sorry. Let me show you. I want to show you this because it shows, let me fix this here. I was in the wrong group. Of course, that's the one that's starting now. I cannot look into the future, what we will do there. But the one I wanted to show you is here. So in week 7, just to show you what we accomplish in 7 weeks. What we accomplish in 7 weeks is that by week 7, folks are writing out their own walking bass lines. And I just want to show you just some homeworks that people have submitted. And it's just really mind-blowing how quick people get very, very good at this. So this is, you always get a video if you miss the session, that's not a problem. But here are some homework submissions from people, right? And then we critique it together, we look at some ways to write things better, we learn together, and people say they get a lot out of it. Why something sounds really good, how you can create a nice, variety for things. These are all the homework submissions from folks. So depending on how they submitted it, it shows up in different ways here. But we go through them and we talk about what makes this a nice line and what could you do better and what works. So, and then we talk about rhythmic variations. So this is week 7, right? Getting from very simple root 5/5s to look at what all these, I'm just clicking here on a random submission from another student, just really beautiful bass lines, right? And so not all that's pink here is criticism. A lot of it is thumbs up and such. So that's our class. We got a new one starting on April 15th. And we are deeply entrenched in the pattern system as well. There's a level 3 starting. There is level 4 is on the way. There will be a new level 1 most likely very soon. So if you're interested, you are seeing, I hope, my banner here. Practice groups easy. That will lead you to the jazz groups. And I, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go and teach one of those right now. So thank you all for joining. I hope you have enjoyed this. We've touched on a lot of different things. And yes, the group learning is really fun. Red Bones, it really is, because we learn so much from each other. Somebody writes a bass line and go, oh, that's a good idea. I would have never come up with that, and so forth. So we have fun. And I have funny sound effects, and we laugh a lot. So I hope this helps clear up a little bit about how we think about patterns in jazz, and have a fantastic rest of your day, everybody. Find me at arispacblog.com. Find my books on Amazon, and spread the word if you found this useful. Cheers.